Aloha, folks. Welcome again to Ho'oi Kaika. We have my brother over here, Sione Uyema. And, I got a chance to get to know him his freshman year, my junior year up at Brigham Young University. And it was kind of interesting. The first thing I knew about him was that he was a wrestler and he was at Iolani High School. And he knew quite a few of the friends that I had from Iolani as well. And then I don't know, but we just started hanging out. And then I think you went on your mission, came back, and then we started getting involved in a few Polynesian dance groups and everything. And yeah, but that was good fun. But the thing was, I was ashamed dancing next to him because he was so jacked from wrestling. Yeah,
This guy.
all these amateur wrestlers, they're all jacked, right? I was like, okay, I don't like this next to Sione.
This
But
guy.
me and Sione are like kind of around the same height. We're like about 5'8", 5'7", whatever. And so usually when you perform on stage, they get you on the ends. You're on the left side or the right side. So I I lucked out that way because I danced next to him. Oh, he's gonna make me look bad. But
This guy.
no,
Actually, everybody knows Gavano's my mentor in dancing.
oh, that's funny, bro. Oh, but no, for real. Like I just known this guy to be, very articulate, evolved in a lot of different things as an entrepreneur, and it's been cool to talk story with him last week on his podcast, and now he's been willing and able to come on Minds right now. So here he is, everybody. Introduce to you my man, Sione Uyema, brother. If you could please go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right. Hey, Gavano, truly appreciate being here. I had a chance to watch an introduction video to this channel and watch a bunch of the gentlemen that you interviewed, and totally impressed. And like you've mentioned before, some of the people I've known for some years too, and had no idea what some of the stories that they had. I mean, I guess there's a lot that we don't know about people's lives. And so, quick introduction. Yeah, my name's Sione Uyema. I'm one of 6 kids to my parents who are still living in Hawaii. And I've been married to Alana for 18 years now already. It's crazy. It doesn't seem like 18 years, but and then as far as, I don't know, background, so I'm half Okinawan, half Tongan. Mom's full Tongan. My dad's full Okinawan. Mom grew up in Tonga. My dad grew up in Hawaii. And I pretty much grew up in Hawaii all my life. Served the 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in California, which could be foreign to some people from Hawaii, depending. And then my wife and I moved up here to Washington State. We live here in Washington State now. We moved up here 8 years ago now. It's crazy. It doesn't seem that long, but 8 years now. And as far as work goes, I've been one of those millennials that have been into different jobs and stuff. For the longest time, though, I've been working with youth, and in our church, I was able to serve in different capacities with the youth, with the young men, and taught seminary for a little bit, and also corrections is what I did a lot of, is working with at-risk youth before they were going to prison. And then I got an opportunity to work in the youth prison there in Kailua on Oahu. Met a bunch of kids from all the different islands, and that's, I don't know, to me, I never really saw myself working at that job for 20 years, but it was such an interesting job. I guess I became fairly good at it. I mean, I guess working with youth, some people say you either like working with youth or you don't. Not really in between, maybe, I'm not sure. But as far as correction goes, I have a police officer friend who just would always tell me, I don't know how you deal with those kids, because I would never be able to do it. And I would tell him, I don't know how you deal with the adults, because I would never be able to do it. So yeah, I was in corrections and moved up here. I did detention, so kids before they go to court and get sentenced, and then on along the entire way of my wife and I being married, we've just been involved with different businesses, and always learning different things. To a lot of it is on the financial parts, but also just figuring out ways to help people, building businesses where we can help people. And so that's pretty much me in a nutshell, I guess.
You know, to do that type of job for 20 years, there's got to be something gratifying about it for you. Well, what would you say was the most gratifying part about that job?
You know, working in corrections, um, I think the most gratifying part is making an impact, in a kid's life. Yeah. Youth are still moldable, and very susceptible to looking for mentors and learning from people. And so it's really neat. Even to this day, they're still youth. Well, they're adults now, but um, there's some of the youth who make it, who are able to make some changes and become successful in getting back into the community and living um, a good life. And I think to me that's pretty awesome. I think in a lot of things you and I don't know the phrase, but you go through a lot of heartache with some of these kids. But when you see the outcome, that value and that outcome outweighs all the heartache that you've ever gone through, right? And so I think for me that's probably one of the most fulfilling things. You do definitely gain a whole bunch of skills. I think that's an added bonus while working there. I mean, your awareness skills as far as your surroundings, you really learn to be hyper vigilant of your surroundings. I think you take that with you. I think anybody in law enforcement or some type of capacity like that really takes that. Even people who probably do martial arts, but you go into restaurants and stuff, you sit in particular places because you want to make sure you know where exits are or people coming in. And you read people. You get to learn to read body language a lot. And then just communication with people is finding out and understanding, taking time. When kids get into fights and you have to debrief with them and stuff, you can kind of find out what triggers were happening, what things are going on. And you really do find out about people's life stories, because a lot of those kids are dealing with trauma that you have no idea until they want to express some of that to you. So I think those are kind of fulfilling things. You definitely make some good relationships with the people there, because um, in some places of work, your coworkers are just there during the day, and you may not cruise with them or anything, but in law enforcement or corrections, your coworkers, they got to have your back. And so it could be something, where you could be getting or possibly get hurt, and you can't trust your coworkers or anything. Then it's kind of a scary environment to be working in. So you really do bond with your coworkers, and you get real close to just building that relationship of trust with people. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Yeah, that. So I got quite a few friends and relatives that are in some kind of form of either law enforcement or have done martial arts, like you were talking about. And you're right, man. They're all like that. Like every time I go eat with them or go hang out and stuff, you can tell like they're always looking around. They're constantly aware of their surroundings. Yeah, go restaurant, back never faces the door. You always check the exits and stuff. Totally, bro. I get it. I totally get it, man. So I'm not surprised. And I know when we hang out, when we're going to hang out, a lot of times they're kind of looking around and make sure that nobody's messing around, yeah, or acting.
Yeah, I think you just build that safe, like it's a automatic safety first kind of thing, and just yeah.
That's good though. That's a good thing. I have asked this question to a lot of the guys that have been on the channel, and it's because I've noticed there's a lot of Polynesian men like yourself. They're involved in industries or jobs where people development is priority or is like a big part of the job. Like you got leadership trainers, job coaches, sports performance coaches, uh, what do you call that? Crisis intervention,
Mm.
and now yours is like law enforcement or whatnot. There's a lot of Polynesians involved in that. Why do you think there's so many Polynesian men involved in careers that involve people having good people skills and people development? Well, what is your opinion on that?
My opinion on that, I think in some careers, um, some years ago, having a lot of Polynesian men working there is great because you got show of force, right? Now, I'm a smaller version of what some bigger Tongans and some ones in Hawaiians look like, but you get people in corrections where um, strength and force, physical force, or commanding out of fear comes easy when you got 6'5" big someone Tongan Hawaiian guy. Um, but I think what's happened even back then that I think is happening now is in our culture. I feel like we whether I've learned this or not, I feel like in our culture we have a tendency to think of everybody as community, right? Like not these guys, those guys, but everybody has an impact in the community. One person, when you talk about it takes a village to raise a child, like it's true, but it also takes a village, I feel like, to keep an adult in growing and learning more and just becoming a good citizen. I think it does. It takes a village, not just to raise a child, but to like keep the community going, even for one person. And so I feel like in our culture, when we have a lot of Polynesian men in those industries, I think we understand like the impact that it makes when we help even one person. And so if we can help one person, that does it changes a whole family, could change a whole generation of or generations of people, and that and that may not directly affect you personally, but it may indirectly affect the rest of your generation or your family or your descendants and stuff. So I feel that is we have a big sense of family, and I think we're not ashamed to share that with people and to show that this is who I am. This is part of my culture, and I think it's a culture worth sharing where we treat individuals not as a criminal, not as you're this, you're that, but like that's my brother, that's my sister, and I think that's probably why it makes it so easy for a lot of us to be sociable, to get to know people. That's my opinion.
Yeah, man, I hear you on that. There's been a few times. I mean, I'm not no psychology expert or whatever, but a lot of times I would ponder what you just said, and I think, I mean, definitely, I think you're right on the money. It's like that island mentality, right? When you got so many people, 1.4 million, right, living in Hawaii, and 80% of it is on Oahu, right? For example, when you got that island mentality, you either gotta get along or you're gonna be beefing all the time, right? It's just
Right.
like, so you learn how to interact, collaborate, and then on an island, there's like no degrees of separation. So it's like, hey, you are my brother or my cousin or whatnot, and everybody's related in some shape or form. So yeah, that totally makes sense what you said, man. Um, what would you say would be the biggest, I don't know, like the biggest attribute to your character? Because so I'm gonna brag about my man Sione. Sione is a very humble guy, so I'm gonna brag about him. One of the great things I noticed about him, he's a very humble guy, and he's always been the type to be very aware of things. In just my interactions with him, I noticed he's always kind of like quiet to himself and noticing, aware of everybody, and being very careful about making sure everybody's okay, that he's okay or whatnot. What would you say was what contributed to that part of your character, about just being aware of everyone's needs, or being just aware of people around you.
I think that's a great question. As you were asking that question, my mind kind of just went to like childhood stuff and just trying to think. And I think it really does. It probably stems probably from childhood. I appreciate the compliments, but I'll tell you a couple of things. Wasn't always I wasn't always like this. I think if you talk to my siblings, you'll learn that we fought a lot as kids. I think there was a time where um, I probably stopped fighting as much, but as kids, I think we learned we learned how to communicate through fighting, which is not uncommon for a lot of Polynesian families. My parents are great people, and I know that a lot of depending how you're raised, right? How you're raised is how you, unless you make decisions to change, sometimes that's how you raise the next generation. And so, if you were raised with choose the right or you're going to feel the left, then sometimes you might take that to the next generation. So, but I think as a kid, I I don't know. I feel like as a kid, I was just always observing, like always just watching, and it might have been from, and I'm not sure why. I'm just totally guessing on this part, but I used to watch. Well, I think I just observed a lot because I was afraid of making a mistake and then suffering consequences for those mistakes, right? So I always talk to my wife about like stories and childhood, and um, I'm super grateful I have an older brother. Um, and people say you can either be an example for somebody or you could be a warning for somebody through that example. And my older brother is just a great guy. He's actually in law enforcement right now too. But my older brother, I watched him. Like I always just like want to kind of do what he was doing when he was doing things, and I'd always copy him. And if he pulled a prank, I try to pull the same prank. Like he would. This one time he dug a hole. He dug a hole in our backyard, filled up with water. I don't know how he did it because he filled it up with water, and the water stayed in there. You'd think if you just pour water in the ground, it just seeps to the ground, right? But he dug a hole, put water inside, covered it with dirt somehow, and made it so that he called me down. He's like, "Hey, come!" So I raced out of the house, ran to the backyard, and he like motioned me to come this way, making me go through a certain path where I totally just fell into this deep hole where one leg was in and one leg was out, and so my leg was just kind of like I was like doing the splits almost, and at least that's how I remember it. And so I thought, hey man, that's so cool. I saw what happened. I saw the consequences. I'm gonna do it. So I tried to do the same thing, and I was trying to figure it out. Like, how did my brother do this? I poured water in I dug a hole. I was like, okay, I poured water in there, and the water's just going into the ground, not filling up the hole, right? And so I'm like, what did he do? And I go and I got Ziploc bags. I poured water in Ziploc bags and I put it inside there. And I thought maybe that's what I did. I stepped in there. I don't remember Ziploc bags, but that's what I did. And then I put dirt over it, and the ground was still like moving. So I was like, what did he do to make it look like it wasn't moving? So then I put like leaves, and then I put like dirt over it, and like just like GI Joe days when you're watching commercials and you're trying to figure out how to play like that, right? So and then I called my younger brother Billy to try and come and do the same thing, and then but it didn't work. Like it didn't work. So I think as a kid, like I was always just like watching and trying to see, like I think that was my learning period, is just trying to observe. Some people, and we talked about this last week. I think I am a visual learner, and so I think for me, watching and learning was how I became kind of this observant person. And I think so that's that characteristic. If you're calling me humble, I appreciate that, because there was a time where I know for sure, and this lesson actually sticks out a lot to me, and I think this is what's helped me um kind of keep myself in check at times. But I remember, and I don't know if I was at Iolani already, um it probably was because I was a teenager at the time, and I went there for high school. So um, my teenage years, I think there was a bunch of times where I thought I knew everything. Even though I know I didn't know everything, but I thought I knew. Well, I just need to know more than my parents, specifically my mom. I just need to know more about my mom, and I'd come off cocky. And I remember my mom said something to me. It was just basically like, you think you know it all, you're getting so cocky. And I remember thinking, one, I don't know it all. I just know more than you. I remember like that's how cocky I was. I was just like, I just need to know more than you. And then my mom said, you're lucky you got a chance to get this type of education. Oh, then that just kind of like stopped me in my tracks. Like, because I saw how much my parents were working hard to put me through Iolani, um, and get this education. And so it made me like just kind of start observing myself and start thinking like, dude, like put yourself in check, man. Like take a look, take a look around and see how you're where you're at right now. It's not because it's just you. It's because of what your parents have been doing. It's because of the rest of the village that's been helping out. Um, and so for me, I think that's where visual learner and just years of observing and seeing people and what works. I think that's I think my social skills probably came from just watching people and seeing what works and what doesn't, and copying. I'm I'm glad I didn't get busted in school for copying because I do a really great job of just watching and mimicking and copying, if I see something that works. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, I think that's what happened. I think it's just a lot of I'm a natural visual learner and just observe.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, thanks for answering that question. I know that was kind of a deep one too. I was like, oh yeah. It is.
No, I
Kinda-
appreciate it. That's good.
Um,
I think it's great when you ask these questions because it really does. I think it helps people really dive deep, go
yeah,
back and see where like some of these characteristic traits come from,
yeah,
how
yeah,
they got developed. And I never really thought about that. I knew I was observant, but as far as a visual learner, and we talked about that last week when
yeah,
we met, but I really think that's how I learned a lot, was just watching and copying and seeing if it worked. Like I would watch, does that work?
yeah.
No, nobody died. Okay, I can do that. Like we could do that. Okay. Or I watched that, and quick example, and I hope my brother, I love all my brothers, but we all learn from each other. But I remember this one time, like my younger brother Billy, and he'll be fine with this story because I think he's told everybody else the story. But he came in the living room one time and he was crying and he had his hands behind his back. And my dad was like, "What happened?" And my dad saw like the blood dripping from behind his back. And look, I'm laughing when I'm talking about blood, right? But what happened was is we had those those popsicles, the double popsicles you could break in half, and so what Billy did though is he got a knife and he tried to cut it in half instead of trying to break it. And along that lines, when he was cutting it, he cut his hand or cut his finger, and that's what happened. And I thought, when I saw all of that, I saw, okay, saw my brother crying, saw the blood, saw my dad get scold him and everything and take care of him, but he was also in pain. So for me, learning was you're gonna get those popsicles. Don't use a knife to break it. But what I did see is I saw my dad, he would grab the double popsicles and he'd go to the corner of the wall and he'd just push up against it and break it. And I thought, nobody got cut. That's simple. I can do it. My dad did it. So nobody got in trouble. So I could do that. And I think that's really how a lot of my learning, maybe to this day still is how I do things. And so yeah, I think there's a lot. I could probably go back and just think about all the different times I've been learning something. And another example, I think it really was learning from watching, because I would see we talk about stories when I'm telling my wife it's stories that she can visualize, because she's like, because I was watching everything. My younger brother, my older brother, playing in the living room. My dad's like, "Hey, stop playing around. Someone's gonna get hurt." And I'm over there watching, And then sure enough, my older brother and my younger brother, Tana and George were playing around, and then Tana's head went into, it was either the corner of the wall, the corner of this small little wooden piano we had. And as soon as I saw that happen, I didn't want to observe and saw what was going to happen next. So I ran to our bedroom, even though I wasn't going to get in trouble. But I ran to the bedroom because I've seen sometimes where if one person gets in trouble, we kind of all got in trouble, but that was rare. So I ran into the room, and I remember, at least this is part of my story, so I remember this is what I remember. So George and Tana might have a different version. But I ran to the room. George came in the room shortly after, and I remember hearing my dad grabbing my brother, taking him to the bathroom, and where our house is, we could look. Our bedroom door and the bathroom door was just right across the hall. So I remember hearing my dad saying, "Look," holding up my younger brother. And when you get a cut on your head, it bleeds a lot. Even if it's a small cut, right? It bleeds a lot. So I remember hearing my dad say, look at you bleeding from your head. Like, you want to die?" So then I came to the door and I was watching, and my dad was holding up my brother, facing him in the mirror in the bathroom and saying, "Look," and then blood just coming down. "Do you want to die?" And then my dad calls my older brother, George, get over here. Look at your brother. You want him to die?" And so this phrase of like, "you want to die, you want him to die" is like stuck in my head. And my wife's heard me use it sometimes when people get in trouble, just for funsies. But but I saw that, I'm like, process playing around. If you don't listen and there's wooden corners, someone's gonna get hurt. Or at least so I thought. So now if I'm playing around, even when I started wrestling, like clear the floor, like clear everything, make sure everything's around safe. Um, but then also just like remembering, like, if someone's telling you something, like pay attention, because there's a reason why dad is saying stop playing around over here, right? Especially my dad was a paramedic, and so there's a lot of stuff that I think we also learned probably from him, from his work and just his character stuff. But anyways, that was just another story of just learning, and I think observing through what was painful, don't do, and then what was not painful might be okay to do. Yeah, which is amazing to me why I still went into corrections. I think if I saw people getting beaten up, a correction officer beaten up, I probably wouldn't have gone to corrections. I don't know.
You know, if you were to talk about your successes and challenges that you've had in life, yeah, challenges you had to overcome to be where you are now, what would you say was your biggest success, and what would you say was your biggest challenge? Or you can name several if you want. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, Man, I would say, it's a good question. Biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge in my life, I think I'm still, I think I'm still going through. I think the biggest challenge for me is to get over any fears to help me progress and become a better person. Whether the fear is of being able to be vulnerable and open up, or the fear is communicating better, or public speaking, or reading out loud, or asking for help. So I think, to me, that's an ongoing challenge. And so on that respect, I think also the successes would be anytime I overcome any of those fears, I count that as a success. I count that as a step in progression. Alana and I we have a strong, huge belief on like just progression and progressing. And so I feel like anytime that I have a challenge, and it's usually around fear of success, fear of failure, anytime we overcome that type, fear of heights, anytime we overcome those fears, for me, I feel like it's a step in progression, a step towards some feeling of success in that path of progression. So for me, I feel like that's it. If I were to narrow down some of like the toughest challenges, I think one of the challenges, and I think people still maybe deal with this today. Well, I know people deal with this today, but one of the challenges I had was not being able to read well. I wasn't dyslexic or anything, but I was in reading improvement until through my sophomore year in high school at Iolani. And I think I found out I didn't like to read what I was told to read, which is interesting because I didn't mind reading the scriptures, which I'm glad that was okay. But I didn't like reading. So part of me was feeling like, especially going to Iolani and coming from public school and still running the pigeon. Sometimes I felt like not as smart, right? And so that was challenging. I think another challenge growing up was I've never been the 6 foot Tongan Polynesian person, right? So I know as a kid I was picked on. I know in kindergarten I was picked on, and but then see, this is where it was kind of bad. But I struggled with that. It was a challenge I went through, and I thought to overcome the challenge was, instead of being bullied, to be the bully. And so I went through that arena too of being a bully, and then also seeing the consequences of that happening. And so making that change from one extreme to the other, and finding out like what is right, what is good for you as a person. Those, I think, are some of the challenges, I think, for me, were that stick out, at least. So that's like, now today, what gets me really fired up is when I see like bullying happening. And But one of my challenges is still trying to come up with creative ways to stop bullying when I see it, other than just wanting to lay hands on somebody, right? And I think working in corrections as that gave me an opportunity to practice some things and to see, because even in prison you'll still see bullying and stuff, and so the opportunity to be able to intervene, and be a peacemaker. My mom said, as I was a kid, when I was asking her about something, she said one of the things she liked about me was I was a peacemaker, and I don't know if I fully embraced that, but I'm sure there's probably somewhere in there where I could probably challenge myself to become a better peacemaker. But yeah, I think for challenges, that's those are just some of the challenges, and I would say the successes. I don't know, I'm not a super speed reader or anything. I definitely am more comfortable now than ever being able to raise my hand and volunteer to read in a church setting for scriptures, or any setting to read. I used to hate reading out loud. And if we were in a class and we're taking turns, like, I get super anxious and anxiety because if I read words that I didn't know and didn't pronounce it well, like, people laugh, and that could affect your confidence. And I hated that. It was just like such a thing. And so I think, anytime you overcome a challenge like that, and that step of progression is a success. So for me, anytime there's a challenge and you overcome that challenge and that fear, I think that's a step up towards progression. I think everybody, if they adopt that mindset, I think they'll see how much they've actually succeeded and outweighed the number of failures or things, the places where they feel inadequate. So yeah.
Now I know why we're good friends, bro, because I'm allergic to books. I think I told you. I don't know. I can't remember if I told you last week on your podcast, but that was something that I always struggled with, because I mean, I've never been officially diagnosed, but I swear I got ADHD, bro, because it took me forever to finish a book. Like, my sister would finish a book in like a day or two. My wife too. Like, it took her, she was quick with it. Me, lucky I finished a book in a year, because
Yeah.
I just looking at words, and then my mind drifts off and start thinking about other stuff. I'm like, oh, and I gotta pull myself back, and then I gotta reread what I just read because I forgot what was in it. And I think I said that's that's the reason why I like the job that I do, because a lot of times I get content from clients where that's what it is. It's a slide or a page with just words on it. And it's my job to make it more interactive and engaging. So that's with the games and the visuals and stuff. It's like, okay, if I was in that training with this person or watching this training, what can I do to it so I can remember or entertain what is being taught to me? And so, yeah, it's kind of funny how you mentioned that, because same with me, man. I even to this day, dude, I still have a hard time reading books. When they talk about the Book of Mormon challenge, I'm like, audio. What's the audio book? Let me go listen to it. Chapter 1, First Nephi. I'll be all over that, but don't to put a book in front of me and require me to read it. I'm like, yeah, kryptonite.
Yeah, that is I think because I've learned that I'm a visual learner. One of the challenges to help me read faster, because Alana she can read books like that, man. She can read books super fast too, and that's something I do want to do. I want to be able to go through a book a week if I can, and I'm not talking about like the Cat in the Hat books, which are great too, which is probably why I loved it, because it was visual learning and seeing a lot of pictures. But
nice.
But and so one of the challenges I'm putting out for myself, one of my goals is to be a speed reader and to be able to read quickly. But I do, if my eyes and I learn visually, I'd love to be able to learn visually, because words are just symbols that represent something, right? And so if I can learn how to use my visual learning to be able to scan and read things and then comprehend it real quickly, then I'll be able to go through books a lot quicker. And so that's a challenge that I have for myself. It's a little intimidating, but that's definitely a challenge that I have. And so when I get to that point, that'll be another success for me, another progressive thing. But yeah, dude, reading out loud that was definitely a fear for me, man, was reading out loud.
Hats off to you, man. Seriously, for doing that. Because get some people that just see those challenges and it's like, never mind, they push it off to the side, but you just attack it head on, man.
I think there's, for some people, for me, I just feel there's some kind of fulfillment. Like, you know how some people, when someone tells them, dude, you can't do that, and they go, oh yeah, let me show you.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's necessarily me. Like, if someone told me that I can't do something, I don't think I take it to heart. I think it depends who says it to me, and whether I value that person's words much. Like, if a stranger told me, Sione, you'll never be able to do this, I'm like, I don't care who you are. I mean, before, as a kid, maybe I might take everybody's words and soak it in, but to me, it just depends on who says this. But for me personally, I just feel like I feel like I gain more confidence when I set my own goal and I accomplish it. And so regardless if somebody says, hey, Sione, you can't do this and can't do that, for added fun, I might say, oh, I'm going to accomplish this because that's what I want to do. And just because you said that, yeah, I'm going to do this also because that's an added plus for me to prove you wrong. But yeah, for me, I think there's a lot more just fulfillment when there's a challenge and it's a challenge to me, and I figure out a way to overcome that challenge. Or I don't have to figure out the way. I overcome the challenge, whether I get help teaching me or do it on my own learning. But to overcome the challenge, I think there's just way more fulfillment. And then it gives me confidence, like, man, if you're able to do this, then you can do this. If you can do this, then you can do this, and just keep progressing.
That's cool, man. When you were talking earlier about being bullied, and then for a short amount of time being a bully yourself, I remember you mentioning how you wrestled, but you also did boxing too, right? Because your dad taught boxing and stuff.
No, I wish that was something I wished I wanted I wanted to learn, but I also knew that if I did ask my dad to teach me to box, I don't know if he would have, but if he did, I'm pretty sure I would have got in trouble in school, because I would have used that, I think, as a coping mechanism to get out frustrations and stuff, instead of wrestling or football, where I could legally, I think I was just getting fights in school. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I would just get into boxing tournaments and stuff, but yeah. So it was something I kind of wanted to do, but I never took it up. I never asked my dad.
Oh, okay, interesting. I've always been fascinated with combat sports and whatnot. Like I've a big fan of like kung fu movies, right, and stuff growing up as a kid. But a lot of my friends that are involved in some type of combat sport, like yourself or whatever, wrestling, whatever it is, boxing, they always talk about how when you learn those types of skills, it helps you in life because you can go through life feeling more confident about you can handle a situation, you know. And when I thought about that, I was like, yeah, that's true, you know, because when you learn those types of things, and a lot of times I find myself that some of the most skilled guys are some of the most humblest guys too. Like they're really they don't they don't put out the fact that, oh yeah, I'm a bad fighter, you don't want to mess with me. They're usually very quiet, humble, very nice people, you know, because they don't have to be, you know, they don't have to
Right.
overcompensate for that lack of confidence or lack of skills. Like sometimes I see people do in certain situations. They're not confident in their skill set, so to put that facade in the front for everybody to see, it's like, oh, look at me, don't mess with me. You know, they real obnoxious and talk loud. The guys who know how to fight, they're like, hey, hi, how's it going? They're very quiet and calm, like yourself. Very humble people, man. And that's one of the things I notice about people who are in that skill set. So that's why I brought up that question. I've always been fascinated by people in combat sports and stuff like
There's,
that.
I know there's a psychology, and Alana would definitely learn. She's probably learned a lot of this, but from my minimal understanding of some psychology things and how people behave, um, everybody likes to be seen, heard, and understood. And part of people's identity is gathered by their environment. What they call like extrinsic control versus intrinsic control. And so if people develop their identity because of extrinsic control from their environment, then you would have to try to get confirmation that I'm a bad fighter, that I'm awesome. And so you'd come off that versus if you have intrinsic control and you know in yourself, like, hey man, I'm a good fighter, then I don't need to talk about it. I don't need people's confirmation. Whether people say I'm good or not, it's not going to affect me because I have that inner control, right? Internal control. And so that's why I just think sometimes that's what it is. And then of course there are other people who might have internal and they just might want to be cocky. I don't know. I don't know if that could coexist, but yeah. So it is just interesting. I think it is. And then and from my observation of things, what not just movies, but like you have some of the like they always say it's the quiet ones you gotta worry about, which is true. Like sometimes you really do you gotta worry about the quiet ones, like what they're thinking, what they're doing, because you have no cues on what they're gonna be doing. And that's like, yeah, working in the prison of the youth was awesome because the boys I started in the girls section, so I learned real great training at the girls part of the prison. But the boys, when they're ready for fight in Hawaii, take off the slipper, take off the shirt. Like that's a lot of warnings. That gives me time to prepare to break up the fight. You throw your slippers, you take off your shirt. That's warnings. The girls, they will sit right next to each other, won't say a word, and the next thing you know, boom. And I thought, whoa, you got to look for the micro cues, man. Like what's going on in the tone of voice, just a little bit of body language and how they're walking. And so, um, I don't know how I got to fighting that's all that stuff, but yeah, it is. Sometimes it's the quiet ones, internal control versus external control. And that's just man, you talking about observation. I'm like my mind is going all over the place with like how I learn and what I'm
Now you're
flashing back.
thinking, yeah, you think like self-assessment now, yeah?
Yeah, dude.
That's cool though. Yeah, and that, thank you for bringing that down too. Like I never thought about that psychology of fighting as well too. Extrinsic control and intrinsic control. I kind of want to look that up too. Yeah, I got interested me. You've instilled a new interest in me today. Um, you know, this is the big question I ask everybody. Um, if you were to give advice to fellow Polynesian brothers out there that are going through struggles right now, what kind of advice would you want to give them?
Ooh, man, I I think I think my advice, I'll try and keep it simple. One, right now in the day that we live in, dude, watch the rest of these channels. Like, watch the rest of the channel and the different people that Gavon's interviewed. I think we find out that we have a lot in common with other people. That people are struggling through the same things, and we always feel like we're alone. And when you live in a village culture, um, you never tend to feel like you're alone externally, but internally you might feel like you're alone when you watch. And this is why I appreciate what you're doing, Gavon, is because there are a bunch of people that I've watched. I'm like, whoa, I had no idea that you were going through that or that you went through that. I can relate. And so I feel like, one, I know it sounds like I'm trying to promote it, but I am, because it's important for people to watch and learn from these other Polynesian guys who've going through these different experiences. And then two, when you feel like you're alone, especially because that's a thing, and a lot of Polynesians, we don't tend to talk too much. Maybe things have changed, depending on how you grew up, right? If you want to be the person that changes the cycle of, instead of communicating with your hands, communicating with your mouth and your words, um, is to just talk to people, man. I don't care if you have to talk to a therapist. You're not mental if you talk to a therapist. If you want to spend time to talk to your spouse, a significant other, a sibling that you trust who's going to be able to be empathetic. Um, I think talking things out. A lot of things get stored up in here that really need to be expressed. And if we don't have a good coping for expression, then we're going to lead to bad coping with expression. And so, whether you express it in art or martial arts or whatever it may be, I just think there's a need for it to be expressed. Whether you talk to somebody, like I said, art or martial arts or something like that. But definitely watch. There's so many people. I still got to watch a few more. And I got so fascinated with your channel, dude. I was watching it in two times because I wanted to like learn as much as I could, and as quickly as I could with all these different people. And like I said, people that I knew, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know all this stuff. And that's cool to hear some of the people that you might even look up to, how they went through struggles. That gives you hope that, like, hey man, if I can relate, there's a way through this. And so, yeah, watch the rest of Gavon's different episodes, and then find a good healthy coping mechanism of expression, whether it's talking to people, martial arts or art, just to be able to express what's going on, when we're struggling.
Bro. Thanks a lot for that, man. I mean, advice. Thanks for the kudos for the channel too. Real fast before I forget.
Yeah.
Say again what the name of your channel is too that you have. What is it called?
I should know off the top of my head, but my
Okay.
wife is like the guru with this. But it's Sione and Alana. And if you look up Sione and Alana on YouTube, you'll find the channel.
Okay.
No, yeah. So we like life lessons, and so we spend time talking about our life lessons, and then also talking to other people to learn their life lessons. And like Gavon, um, you start finding out how much people have in common, but also just the different struggles people have, that also they've had successes by overcoming those struggles, are definitely helping other people. So we totally appreciate what you're doing. It's awesome.
No, I appreciate you guys for doing it too. I remember seeing Alana post something, I think it was on Facebook, and then that kind of piqued my interest. And then she had this group about like I think it was like gospel sharing Facebook group that she started too. I think I'm still a member of that as well. But just seeing you guys put out positive content online is something that is so needed, man. And it's so cool to see other social media content creators like yourself doing it, man. Because I'm all for that, because we need that so badly right now. There's so much crap happening in the world, so much negativity that's going around. People are hurting themselves because of it, and we need more of the stuff that you guys are putting out there too. So, folks, please go check out their channel as well, man. Like and subscribe it, comment, and put the word out there that Sione and his wife Alana are doing some good stuff. And something interesting I gotta tell you, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but while you were talking, just now about giving advice. You sound like a doctor, bro. Uh, I think you should get your doctorate degree. Honestly, man. And I'm not just saying that too. Like, I mean, that whole field of psychology, from what I actually got, believe it or not, I actually got a minor in psych at
Nice.
NYU. Yeah.
See, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And it fascinated me because of my dad. My dad's background, you know, because he's operant conditioning and all that. And with that minor, I've learned some things, but and then from the common thing that I hear from a lot of people in psychology is that you have to get your doctorate degree. And with the knowledge that you have, bro, and the stuff that you've been saying, oh man, I really think you should consider it, man. Oh, really? Like getting that PhD or PhD or whatever it is, because I think there's going to be a lot of people leaning on you for help, and with that certificate, you can actually reinforce compensation for that help that you're gonna give them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, oh yeah, you want help from me? Yeah, you're gonna have to pay me for a consultation. You know? Seriously, bro, you should. I don't know, man. You should think. You ever thought about that before? Or?
You know, as a kid growing up, one of my goals was to become a doctor, but it was to become a doctor because I think I just heard a lot mostly from my mom.
Yeah.
I think she might have instilled like Sione's gonna become a doctor. I think my mom had a plan for like.
Told you that?
Huh?
She told you that you're gonna be a doctor?
I think so. Like not like she didn't tell me like I think she told me like you're smart enough to become a doctor and she would tell other people I think like to be like first Tongan doctor kind of deal like but I I don't know I think when I got into like studying and nursing and stuff like I was gonna go to nursing school because I was like doctor my observation of things where I saw doctors and their lifestyle like great with money but like sometimes there's a lot of divorces and stuff depending on how you act as a doctor right and so I thought maybe go into nursing and then when I got into that I was like is this really what I want to do like is this how I want to help people and I it wasn't like it wasn't a thing so I went away from that but to your point becoming a doctor in that type of field of maybe psychology or just helping people or something like that. Never thought about that, but that's something I'm gonna have to think about now. Now you get me thinking.
Oh, seriously, man. I mean, don't you think that that's interesting that your mom told you that? Because and then no, I'm telling you it now. Don't you think that's gonna...
Well, that is interesting because you just said like, I just had this thought, and I'm like, you know, yeah, this intuition kind of thing. That's kind of cool. Never thought about that.
Yeah,
I just have to find out how. I love learning. I
Yeah.
don't know if I love learning necessarily in a school setting. Like
Oh, that's it.
I think I realized for years I was okay. I made it through that kind of stuff, but I don't know how well I I would thrive.
Got you.
I don't
I
know.
understand.
I don't know. Just that could be another challenge in my head that a false belief that I just need to get rid of too. So I don't know.
Yeah, no,
Maybe I gotta go to school and find that out if it's false beliefs and just get that out of the head and
hey, challenge. That could be one of your challenges, man.
challenge.
I like that idea you said about being a lifelong learner, bro. I feel like I'm one too. Like I'm always trying to learn whatever it is. Like I actually applied for this program that Kamehameha is sponsoring. It's called Kaya Ulu. They teach people how to do web development and mobile app development. And you know, because I've been doing multimedia work for a while, but mobile app development is something that I just only scratched the surface a little bit, and I want to learn more. This program is going to start, I think, in the middle of May, and I signed up for it.
That's cool.
So I'm getting involved in that too, and then yeah, just having that mindset, you always get something more to learn, whether it's in the formal setting of a classroom or informal, and so last year I actually applied for a doctorate program for EDD. I was in it for about 3 or 4 months, but quite frankly, we were so busy with my wife's job and my job. And like you said about the whole thing about doctors. So my wife is a doctor, right? Bruh, she is busy as heck. And with our conversations, she's very cognizant about spending too much time in that, you know, so we don't so we don't get divorced or separated or anything like that. So yeah, she's like pulling back. So I hear you on that, bro, about getting in that field. But she's good. She's very good about watching herself and being observant of what she's doing.
Yeah, and I've seen doctors, like growing up in high school, in our ward, we had a couple doctors, and I've seen them have great lives and stuff, and balance and everything. In fact, you might know the Moggelsons.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Uncle Mark Mogelson, he's a doctor, and but great life for the family, raised a great family and everything, surfer, so I saw it was possible if that was something I wanted to do. So
yeah, it's hard though, but
yeah,
man, I there's a reason why we're talking about this, bro. I mean, just consider it, like for me, for right now, especially with the kids at this age and everything and what's going on. I dropped out. I dropped out after, I think it was like 6 months and stuff. But somewhere down the line, I think when the kids get older, it'll be easier because, they need us more involved in what they're doing. But yeah, bro, dude, yeah, just try do some research.
I whenever you tell me something, Gavon, and I'm not saying this to just inflate anything, but when you do say something like that, especially when the intuition thoughts, like I do, I take into good consideration, because I feel like one of the blessings that we all have is when God is trying to help us out, he sometimes uses his other children to give us answers that we've been looking for, so
that's true, man.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, you give me some too. That's one of the reasons why I like doing these sessions too, because I learn, bro. I learn from guys like you. And it helps me with the stuff that I'm going through or whatnot. And it's kind of like my own therapy session. See, because you're doing this therapy session with me, I should be paying you. So you should get that doctorate, man, to make it official, bro.
I'm excited for everybody that decides to come on your channel to be interviewed, and then everybody who's like watching and listening, because I feel like the more that people can elevate their mindset, elevate their heart, we will have more of a Zion community. And the closer we can get to a Zion community where everybody's like a village and we're just helping each other out, whether we're poor, well, there would be no poor among us. I'm not saying everybody would be rich, but there would be no poor. And everybody would have this common goal of just having a better lifestyle. And so every lifestyle, health, wealth, family balance, all that stuff. So
I can see you doing that, bro. Yeah, I can see you totally just helping people with that, especially with the way how mental health is such a big deal. Man, I can just see you helping so many people, man, helping Zion, making good money, all those things. Oh shoot. But yeah. Just keep me posted on what path you go, bro. I'll send some stuff your way, because I'm always researching, networking with people that are involved in different industries, and I look up programs and stuff too in various fields.
Yeah.
So I'll send some stuff your way about psychology. I found some in organizational behavior. I found some stuff in like a clinical psychology or whatnot. So yeah, I'll just check them out to see if you might be interested. It's like doctorate programs, like online doctorate programs and stuff.
And I appreciate that PDF you sent with the
the
learning. It was cool. I appreciate that. Yeah.
That stuff helped me. I mean, some people don't think it's real science or whatnot, but for me, man, it's helped me a lot, and I've seen it help other people too. So, you just try using it and see if it works.
Guarantee, no.
But no, mahalos, brother. Hey, folks, everybody, make sure you check out Sione and his wife on their channel. And if you if you're looking for any type of advice to help you get through life and progress, consult with Dr. Sione Uyema, future Dr. Sione Uyema, doctor of psychology, man, and make sure you pay the guy. You pay the guy his worth, bro. Because I'm telling you, right, this is really cool. This is really cool. I appreciate you doing this, bro. Big time.
Oh, I appreciate you, man. This is really good and helpful. Hopefully helpful for everybody who's listening. So thank you for your time, my good man.
Yeah. Mahalo to you too, brother. Mahalo everybody for watching Hoi Kaika.
Yep.
Catch you on the next episode. All right. Aloha. Peace.
See you guys.